Hello, this is the third video of the series Tools for Life, Ceremonial Knowledge. And today I will be talking about the concept of space. But the space that I'll be talking today is more of a spiritual concept, yet as everything spiritual, it has a lot of usage and benefit in our physical world, in our human experience. The first thing, or the first example, how I will describe space will be a connection to interpersonal relationships of any kind. Try to remember the last conversation when you felt triggered and you have reacted in certain way, but just feeling certain emotion and allowing it to be expressed verbally, or maybe even physically. But I'm talking about something which you may not be so pleased later. So the expression of those feelings that we experience when we are triggered, most of the time it's an unconscious process because we have a lot of programming that has been installed in us in different periods of our life, but of course mostly as we were children, by our parents, our family, our schools, our society, culture, etc., etc. And a lot of those programs sit in the unconscious mind, so we just used to react in certain way to certain things, and sometimes we may call it a mood. When we are in a bad mood, we just react that way, or if we continue and deepen with those reactions, then it becomes a character. And I'm talking about something which is not very pleasant or has a negative impact on your life or on your relationships. And the other end of this is when for some reason, even though you really felt like reacting, you didn't. You kept your silence, you paused, or just decided to respond later. And that became a response instead of reaction. And there is a big difference between those two. And what created that difference was actually the space. And space in that aspect can be expressed within the silence, within just giving the time to the situation, saying, I'll sleep on it. So by creating the space in any way, give it a bit of time or in a physical distance, you allowed your conscious mind to enter the dialogue, and instead of reacting, choosing a conscious response. And even though the conscious response rarely, but still may be the same as the unconscious one, the reaction, at least it is your conscious choice of giving that response. So space gives us the chance to be present and aware of the situation where we are with ourselves and other people, which makes it more healthy in the way that we communicate with each other. The second aspect of the space that I'd like to talk about, since we are in this self-isolation, and it works differently for all of us, we're very different. Our life stories are different, our paths are different, our lessons are different, so we react differently to our current situation, being in the quarantine and staying at home by ourselves and with our loved ones, and both can be challenging in different ways. And now fellow light workers do lots of great work, which I truly appreciate. There are lots of resources available, but there's this common message of, if we cannot go out, let's go within, let's meditate and do other practices, that are available. And I see that as much as it is obvious that those practices can help, for some people, this is not the solution in this moment. For those who feel very vulnerable, who feel a really big issue with grounding, who experience a lot of anxiety or fear or even panic, they feel that they've not been heard, because for the person in that situation, having those emotions to tell, just sit and meditate or go within, it can be a trigger, because the person may feel that they are not seen for what they experience. So I will give another example or comparison. So we've all been into the museums, right? And imagine yourself be at MoMA or the Met or Louvre or Tate Gallery or Hermitage, wherever you are. So imagine yourself standing in front of the beautiful art piece, a painting, and you're standing a few steps away from it. And you look at the details, just watching it. And then you make few steps back. And suddenly you begin to see the whole picture, and you start noticing something that you could not see while you were standing too close to it. And then the picture gives you another feeling or another impression or another experience. So this is the same principle that can be applicable in the situation wherein you are experiencing a panic, or the fear is coming up again, or certain emotions, that just start to build up in your system. So sitting and meditating may be challenging, but making a small step back or couple may be helpful. And how can you do that? So very simple one is always close your eyes and take a deep breath and exhale. And you can do a few more of those, and taking deep breath always helps. Or you may remember this tool, in terms of maybe even physically stepping or just moving around, or looking in the mirror or laughing. Something that will allow you to create the space between the situation or the emotion or the fear, the trigger, and yourself. And as I said, the physical movement can help, so you can actually physically feel the space being created in that situation. And with that, you will be returned to the present moment, because you allow your, again, consciousness, your conscious mind, to enter the dialogue. And then from there, you have more choice about how you will proceed from that moment on. So in these times, if you have a lot of that happening on a daily basis, just establishing this small practice of literally stepping away, or creating the space, or imagining you in this space, or imagining yourself in this space, and then stepping outside of it, maybe establishing this routine and this practice on a bigger level later, when you will be able to calm yourself and sit and meditate. But again, I always say that any trigger, any situation presented to us is at the same time invitation to explore, invitation to learn something new. So same with example as the picture or art piece in the museum, where you make few steps back and you see something, or you have an experience that you hadn't had before while you were too close. Same way can be applied to the situation where, from the moment where you're very uncomfortable, to switch into the mode of curiosity and exploration. And the third concept that I'd like to talk about within the subject of the space is what is holding the space. And you may have heard this concept, you may have worked with it. Sometimes there is a certain uncertainty about what does it mean to hold the space. And we're coming back to interpersonal relationships. And again, we are engaging in a lot of communications with other people right now, giving support to each other. And part of this support is actually holding the space. And it means that you create a space, and it's more of a spiritual / emotional space, a space for conversation, a space where you are silent and you allowing the other person to express themselves. And there are a few conditions for that. The most important thing about creating the space for someone, and at the same time, it means that you create the container. You create the container for them to express their emotions, but knowing they are within that container. And the first rule is that that place, that space, that container has to be safe. And how do you do that, say, in a personal conversation? You can talk about the confidentiality of the conversation, saying whatever is about to happen or whatever the conversation or experience about to happen will remain between you two. And the second thing, it's on the space holder that you have to be in a non-judgmental state. And it doesn't mean that, you don't say anything and it means that you don't judge. No, you don't need to judge on an energetical level. You need to find that neutral space. And what helps me in my coaching work is that if the person goes through something very, very emotional that in a normal situation you may be triggered by, you can imagine the person or see them as a child going through a certain tantrum where they're not in control of their own container. And I talked about in the previous video when the energies that are coming are too much, so they get overwhelmed by them and they need to release them in a certain way. And sometimes it's a cry or scream or whatever that is. So same rule applies to when you hold the space for a person who is not in full control of their emotions, that you may look at them as a child that just cannot right now in that specific moment be an adult. And you cannot judge the child because the child is not equipped to have everything to be able to work with their emotions. So be in a neutral state. And another one, which is very important, of course, to be in a compassionate and loving space. So while the person is going through their experience and expressing themselves the way they need to, you don't need to engage in any way into conversation. And if you have a feedback to offer, you need to wait until they have finished with their self-expression. But throughout their process, to support them with this loving and compassionate energy, that you don't need to say anything, you may just feel it in your heart and connect to that energy and just sending that energy to them without a word, maybe just looking into their eyes. If you're next to them, maybe touching them, patting them on the back or whatever, if that is well received. Or again, just sitting next to them and just sharing that space with them. And that is very, very powerful. Again, this is something that I learned through ceremonial work and the coaching work as well, where we all have our own wisdom and we have a lot to say and to share from our personal experiences. But one of the basic needs that all of us have is just to be seen and to be heard for who we truly are. And in that moment, we really don't need other people's opinion, approval, judgment, and even if it's with the best intentions. We just need to be seen and heard, that our truth will be heard and seen, or ourselves in the way that we want to express. And that's probably the most precious gift you can give to someone is your own presence within the time and the space. And of course, this tool or this practice strengthens relationships of all kinds, because if you give each other that space and allow each other to self-express and release, you create this foundation of trust and support. And from that you can build many things and you can resolve many things. So these are the 3 subjects that I wanted to cover so far about the space, and I'm sure there are many more, but that's coming to me today. And I want to finish with a little practice / meditation to anchor this teaching. So I invite you to close your eyes, take a deep breath into your heart, and try to relax. Because one of the aspects of the space and how you can feel the space inside of you is allowing it to enter with the breath and feel the relaxation in your body. Because when you go through something which emotionally challenging, you can feel the tension in the body. And the opposite of it will be the relaxation. So again, with a deep breath, just connect to your heart and then relax even more. Feel that spaciousness inside of your heart, inside of your body. And now I invite you to go to this space. It may be somewhere in the nature. It may be by the fire. It may be the edge of the cliff. It may be somewhere by the ocean, on the top of the mountain. Wherever that place is for you, the place where you feel freedom, the place where you feel spaciousness, the place and the space where you feel you. So with the breath, connect to that space. This space may be something from your childhood, from your early experiences, or maybe a space from the dream or a postcard that you have seen. But you know that space. You know, your heart tells you what this space is. So start breathing into that space. How does it smell? Is there a fire or the forest or the breeze of the ocean? Maybe feel the wind on your face, stroking your hair. And connect to that feeling of that space, of that freedom, of the spaciousness. And when you connect to that feeling, try to spread it among your body, all over your body. And allow your body to soak in that feeling, that experience. So your body recognizes the space, your body recognizes the emotion, the feeling behind it. And take a couple more breaths with this feeling, with this experience of space within your body. And with the next breath, anchor that feeling within your body, anchor it within your heart so you can always come back to this space. And then with the next breath, slowly and gently open your eyes and return to the space where you are. So the invitation is just to work with this concept maybe and try to implement it in your life where you can. Thank you so much. Thank you.